Big ideas in small bites. This is Bite Sized, brought to you by Accenture.
Hello, and welcome back to Bite Sized, the podcast where we break down big ideas into 20-minute bites. Today, we're talking about something we hear a lot of excitement about: AI, automation, and productivity. It wouldn't be a podcast episode with Bella Thornley if we didn't talk about AI. But this time, we're going to look at it through a lens that doesn't require you to know everything about technology at all. While AI is advancing at pace, the real question for most organizations is, how does this actually help people get more done? And today, I'm delighted to be joined by Andy MacMillan, CEO of Alteryx, a platform designed to put the power of data, automation, and AI directly into the hands of business users. Today, we'll be unpacking how Alteryx is changing the ways we get work done, why no-code and agentic AI matters, and what this all means for skills, ownership, and the future of productivity. Andy, all my favorite topics. We haven't often got the privilege of having CEOs join us on this podcast, so thank you very much. One of the questions I would love to ask is, as a CEO, how do you see your role changing, especially, not just on Alteryx, but, with Alteryx and with AI and Agentic going forward? What does your focus need to be? What are the skills that you now need that you previously might not have needed as a CEO?
When it comes to running a business, I think of essentially constraints, right? I'm a big believer in the theory of constraints. And I think AI is this amazing constraint buster. The things I think about running a software company that used to constrain how fast you could go, how long it takes to build software. Well, that's changing dramatically. How you enable your marketing and sales teams, like that's changing dramatically. And so I think for every CEO, I think you should be thinking through what constraints in your business are perhaps no longer the main constraints. That really enables you to think really big. And I think the second is trying to think through how to get your team excited about what that means. And I think this is a big challenge for every CEO right now. I think everybody is sort of, some percentage really excited and some percentage really terrified. So I think CEOs have both of those to think through, which is sort of almost reimagining your business with different constraints. And then, in every business, you got to figure out how to bring your team along with you as you do that reimagining.
Can you share a little bit about your journey before and what made you decide to join Alteryx?
Sure. Yeah, my background, I've been in the software industry a long time. I actually started my career as a developer quite a long time ago, building Java applications and websites for General Motors of all companies in the Detroit area. But ended up in product management, came up through the ranks at Oracle and Salesforce before deciding that being a tech CEO sounded like a fun way to spend my time. I had a really early experience with enterprise AI. We were building some stuff at my last company and partnered with OpenAI. And through that partnership, ended up deploying it wall to wall across the whole company. We went over to OpenAI's offices here in the Bay Area and started building things. And what we found pretty quickly was, and I'm sure many people have had the same experience, it's really good at doing creative things from other creative things. What we found inversely was it was actually pretty bad at all the things about corporate data. And I use the example of, if you asked ChatGPT, what will my commission be as a salesperson if I close this deal? It would like get out its little soapbox and tell you all about how commissions work. And you're like, no, I just want to know, like, what will my commission be if I close this deal? And it doesn't know how to answer that. It didn't know how to get the data. It didn't know how to do the calculations. It couldn't do it predictably. And so, to your question, I actually left that company thinking I would start a new company that was going to solve all the data wrangling, the messy data problem behind, scaling and automating the answers around data that AI would need. And I was actually in the process of talking to people about funding that company and what it would look like to build it. And I got the call about the Alteryx job. And Alteryx has been in the business of wrangling data for 20 plus years. And it's a huge business. And I just thought, this is perfect. Like, this is the company that kind of does the thing that I'm looking to solve and does it at scale. And so that was sort of the way I ended up over at Alteryx.
As you mentioned, there's a lot of people out there that I think are struggling with some of their data and getting the real value out of it. But for listeners who aren't familiar, how would you explain what Alteryx is in simple terms? What do you mean by data wrangling? And for, the real classics, what's the difference between Alteryx and Excel? Because we all love Excel.
Sure. We do all love Excel. It's been a big part of business for a long time. I think of it as not just what we do, but sort of who we do it for is a really important part of our story. Alteryx is a company that has empowered the business analyst, the business professional throughout our entire history as a company. And so I like to think of somebody who is amazing at Excel, somebody who writes macros, the kind of person where you go ask them a question about your business, someone on your supply chain team or your finance team or your marketing ops team. And they go, okay, no problem. I'm just going to open a spreadsheet and I'll pull in 4 sets of data and I know how to put it all together and I can give you an answer. That person is the ideal user of Alteryx. And what we essentially do is give that person a tool to take all that knowledge and all that capability. And instead of making it a personal productivity capability like Excel is, imagine turning that into an enterprise capability. So we're empowering the people that know the business, that know the data to kind of put that into action in this new agentic world.
Brilliant. What we've started to see, and you might have heard it in previous episodes of the podcast, is there is starting to be a bit of a shift in roles within businesses, especially as you start applying AI and agentic AI on there. And you mentioned who are you targeting sort of with Alteryx. Do you see that shifting, that we're now starting to move into more actually within the business and being able to provide the tooling to business personas to actually to be able to drive their own insights rather than having to go to dedicated insight personas?
I think it is. It's this sort of core tension that I see right now around AI and stress and everybody trying to be like, what's going to happen to jobs and skills and everything else. One of the kind of core tensions there is like, well, who's bringing the knowledge to solve problems? And I think right now we're seeing some interesting examples of where the sort of IT engineering coding side of the world is saying, look at all these new capabilities we have. We're going to build agents. We're going to build, all these smart things. Um, I actually think what's going to happen next is we're going to see the line of business folks are going to start to realize that the big promise of AI is that you don't have to have all those coding skills to solve problems. And so I think what we're going to see happen is a lot of these budgets are going to shift over to the line of business, and they're going to say the IT department is giving me access to maybe a big data platform. Maybe IT is giving me access to one or more of these large language models and agent platforms. But now I need to build something, and I'm in marketing or I'm in sales ops. And I think there's an opportunity with agentic coding for it to turn into agentic solution, which is give me a canvas that I understand, something like Alteryx, where I'm not in Python, I'm in a logical set of data sets that I know how to work with. And I can use AI to create things in that canvas that I understand as a business user. And I can deploy and manage and run those and solve problems. And what that means is I'm not waiting on IT every time I want to change something. IT is going to provide the infrastructure to build agents, but the business is going to provide all of the expertise, the knowledge. So I think that's the really big opportunity with AI is figuring out how to empower the kind of folks that we've been empowering, the people that, again, know the logic, know the data, know how the business runs.
And I guess this is the big question. How is Alteryx doing that? So how are you enabling those business users to create those insights without needing to code or be able to use Excel in a really detailed way?
Well, the big thing for us is we've always been mostly no code. You kind of hear the no code, low code thrown around, but essentially no code to the extent that if you're a heavy duty Excel user, you know how to put an if statement in a macro. I don't know if we call that coding, but like that's the universe of Alteryx. We've always made it easy for people to get, again, grab data from disparate sources and sort of put some logic together. We're essentially a canvas where you kind of drag and drop this logic to make something happen. What we're doing now is we're connecting that into agentic coding platforms. So imagine instead of, again, using something like a Claude Code or a Codex, and I say, hey, I'm trying to solve this, challenging marketing problem, and I need to, I don't know, look at my Google AdWords, compare it to my data in Marketo and figure out which ads are performing. Right now, I can do that in something like Claude Code, but it's going to give me Python back. And the problem if I'm in marketing ops is, I don't really want to spend my time in Python. And it can run and it might look kind of correct. But then if I go to my boss and they go, well, are you sure it's right? You don't want to go, well, I don't know, the robots created some code and I think it's right. Like you want to you want to be able to understand it. So if you think of Alteryx is this canvas that marketing ops team already knows how to use. And if they used Codex and said, hey, create an Alteryx workflow for me that pulls together my Google AdWords data and my Marketo data and put it on this canvas and have it run. Number one, it'll run the same way every time. So I get repeatability, but I get understandability.
Could you just give me a real life example of something that you've been talking about with your clients at the moment and how they're using Alteryx from a business perspective?
I was at a large manufacturing company, a customer of ours. And one of the things they were talking to us about was demand planning, which in the manufacturing world is thinking through your orders and building based on what your dealer network is telling you. Often dealers that aren't part of your company, they just sell your products. And so you get an inventory request from them. And then your suppliers, all the people that you depend on for parts for the things that you're building. And so this is a world where, people go to school, they get, master's degrees in supply chain management and things. These are real experts that are trying to put that knowledge to work to think through the demand planning for their business. Often this is the kind of thing you would buy from your ERP vendor. You would spend tens of millions of dollars, spend a year or two rolling out and get this fairly static traditional demand planning capability. And they asked us, could you help us pull the data together to do this through AI using either ChatGPT or Gemini or Anthropic? And so what we did is we actually used ChatGPT to iterate on the requirements and learn all about their dealer system and their supplier system and their ERP system and how that works. We generate a set of requirements of, okay, how would you do agentic demand planning? And what we then did was agentically built 16 Alteryx workflows that pull all this data together for them and then put an AI layer on top of it so you can interact with that data, which allows them to look at external factors. So when they see demand moving in a part of the country, for example, they can be interacting with a GPT saying, like, what are driving these things? What are the things to be happening in the market, which is really interesting. The real value here is that these 16 workflows are visible, understandable, repeatable, and auditable by the people in their supply chain business. And so when their business changes, which it will, they can open up an Alteryx workflow. We have AI tools built in the platforms. They can talk to it like you would talk to an AI. They can make those changes. They can push those changes into production, and their AI will continue to be up to date and trustworthy because they understand that logic.
For those listeners that aren't familiar with ERP, that's the enterprise resource planning on a acronym side of it. Andy, one of the things you mentioned there is like trustworthiness, auditability. This is obviously a huge conversation when it comes to using AI and agentic. What are the controls that you are putting in place? How are you building that trust?
Well, a big part of it is just transparency and visibility and understandability, right? So if I'm not a coder, having things represented in a way that I can understand and that meets my enterprise visibility and transparency requirements is really important. I think also understanding that AI is generally, it's certainly the large language models, probabilistic by nature. And so I always tell folks when you're doing something with AI, just put the word probably in front of it. And if probably is great, then you should use, an agentic platform to solve that problem that has a large language model making that call. If probably is not the right answer, then you should be thinking about, is that the right tool? And so I'll give an example. If I created a large language model that evaluates GDPR compliance, I wouldn't want to go to my head of legal and go, we sent out a whole bunch of emails and they're probably GDPR compliant. But if I was reconciling maybe a bunch of accounts in the tax department and some percentage of them just don't reconcile. And one of the things I'm going to do is create a little interface for the tax team where I have agentic AI go, actually, we think this one's probably this one. And maybe a human still goes, oh, okay, like, let me look at it. Yeah, that is that one. That was really, really helpful. Mixing and matching those are really important. And I think trust, to your question, comes from if I'm using those two things correctly, what's deterministic and what's probabilistic, and I'm doing it in a transparent way, and I can show the end user or the consumer of that information what I'm doing, then I think people can trust it. And I think it's one of those areas, and there's a lot being written about this right now, that's really easy to lose. When you have people building things with AI who don't understand the actual business, they're just really smart technical people who, in this example earlier, maybe don't know much about supply chain. And they build an agent that tells you what you should do with your supply chain. And you show up in a meeting and people that know supply chain in 2 minutes are like, none of that's correct. That project's over, right? Nobody's going to go back and and lean into that. And so this is where, again, I think bringing the business into the equation, giving them tools that are transparent and visible and repeatable and auditable, and then thinking about where is probably a new great capability versus probably being something I don't want to put in front of an answer. Then I think we can solve really interesting new things with AI.
You've taken us through your demand planning example, but on value, there is generally a little bit of a noise around AI sort of being a hype and how we get value out of it. Have you got an example that you can talk us through, or any stats on a real tangible productivity gains that some of your customers have seen through using Alteryx?
So in that demand planning example, the alternative for that company is to buy a demand planning module from the ERP vendor that will cost them 10 to $20 million. We built this in a week with software they already own. And so I think that, right off the bat can be a pretty high ROI. We're working with a finance team that is creating a contract ledger, and they had a plan to do this over 18 months, and using agentic AI and building that into Alteryx, they're taking that down into weeks. And so that's not only the cost and time of building that, but think of all the value of having that contract ledger sooner, which is what the company uses to figure out where to upsell, where to go to market, what new products to bring into a customer. So that impacts both top line growth opportunity and bottom line cost. I think the real ROI is when you get into the business and they say, oh, these are our top three problems. And some of them drive top line, some of them manage risk, some of them manage cost. But by using AI, I can accelerate the time that those projects get done, and I can leverage that with the people that I have and the skills that I have. And that's where the ROI calculation, I think, gets really interesting.
Brilliant. Very exciting. So from that, fast forward 5 years, what is the headline that you would like to see, and what part would you like to have played in creating that headline?
I think the big one for us would be that AI becomes this great enabler of people who are experts in what they do to create incremental new value. So it's not that AI replaces expertise. I don't believe that that's what will happen. It's that everybody who, again, is that expert in supply chain, that expert in finance or in marketing or in sales or whatever it is they're doing, says, boy, I can get so much more done. My job is so much more rewarding because I can use AI to solve the mundane, to think big, to solve new challenges. And I think Alteryx has an opportunity to be that canvas that they use to solve all these problems. And I think if we can help those people who have been our customers for many, many years be successful in this era of AI, I'll be really happy and proud of what we've done as a company.
Amazing. Andy, thank you very much. That has been super interesting, and it is great to see that we've got someone that is solving for the wonderful data wrangling challenge that we've got, and actually really bringing insights, which I think has probably been a data strategy for most companies, bringing insights into the business hand. So I'm really excited to see what comes next. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
So with that, thank you for listening, and I look forward to our next episode.